Hello there, this is Cookies. I've got turn 61 of M.A. Nabah. And we got another gold payment from Man. We got some air and water gems from Asphodel for the trade we did. Additionally, we have another dire portent. And this is Abyssia putting up Second Sun. So, in response to this, Zan playing Vanarus is going to immediately declare war. So, we're looking forward to that war and seeing how that goes between Vanarus and Abyssia. Vanarus has a significant advantage over Abyssia. He's taken less attrition, won 2 wars rather than arguably lost a war. And he's also not had hell scales the whole time, so he has significantly more resources. He also has a conjuration discount site versus the blood discount site that Abyssia's got that I haven't seen Abyssia using via the blood graph. So yeah, Vanarus I would say has a significant advantage. They've also got a research lead. So this should be pretty one-sided, but I'll be curious to see what Ballin pulls out, because I think Ballin's got some cool tricks up his sleeve, so kind of want to see what those are. And we're going to keep going after Agartha. So we found a singing stream this turn, which is 1 water, 1 glamour. We also found a spiral shaft, which is 1 astral, a much needed astral. We're now up to 5. And additionally, we've done some more blood hunting and we've got a few fights. So first up is Agartha attacking in the Forbidden Forest. So they've moved on to another Asphodel fort, but it gives them the option to attack us with their full contingent. So they're not going to raid across the water, they're going to walk around the river potentially. And if they take this Asphodel fort, they'll have a base of operations to use for attacking into us. Also, they've moved into Forest of Pine, so this army is clearly coming towards us. We've got Shard Guard, we've got Great Olms, Sentinels, and Magma Kids. There's also more commanders in this force. So we have an Oracle of the Ancients, this Oracle of the Ancients, a few Olm Sages, but notably there's no gems on any of these mages. So I do see some opportunity here unless he has a scout that is going to put the gems onto the army. And that would be sneaky. We had a bunch of people leave. We also had an assassination attempt in Ablak. So let's go ahead and see how he does. Oh, so it's our priestess, or sorceress, trying to defend herself. She kills one of them, but she's down to 4 HP. Oh my goodness. Alright. That was surprising. And then another assassination. This is Zan's blood sacking coming back to bite us, as it's lowering our Dominion score. Alright, but this lady has bodyguards, so she's just fine. And we get some brigands and a water gem. Okay, and then we have some stealth battles. So one of our stealthy groups gets patrolled out, which is a little surprising that it must have been the PD, because this group just moved in. They couldn't have patrolled. So some of the camels do get wrecked. And then we have another group in Glyph. Oh, one of my scouts gets patrolled out, but he finds a bunch of mannequins. And we have another scout patrolled out by a bunch of mannequins. Okay. Give me 1 second. So we can see here that the Agarthan army has moved into Forest of Pine. That means that he's got one obvious move and one non-obvious move. Alright, so the obvious move is Forest of Pine into Scraw Point. The non-obvious move is what this army does. It could come back to a Micton and knock off maybe a sieging Asphodel fort that's following behind. It could storm Forbidden Forest and gain a base of operations, another fort like this one, where he could do some hiring, trace income, and even recruit more troops. So he could do some of that here, or he can move into Bay Pond. And Bay Pond is a fun move because it forks two of my forts. So it forks Hubberton and it forks Cavern of Tog. So it does make my life more difficult. But we've got some plans in action to try and parry these army movements. So first up, the main force is going to move into Scraw Point. So we've got our communion. We have a fair number of squads of troops. We have hermits to here. We have our main lady casting Wailing Winds. We have another little army thug. Here's another little army thug. And we have our communion. The Blackhawks are to distract Mind Blasts from the front line. And we're going to be teleporting in It's a Dry Heat to cast anti-magic, and if something happens to him, we have someone in the communion with a later order to also cast anti-magic. So that's step one. We want to kill this Forest of Pine army, and then we can pivot back to the army in Forbidden Forest. Now for Forbidden Forest, we're sending our first Shaitan. So this fort is under siege, which means we can definitely send a Shaitan to sit under it. So we've got this guy with a Flesh Eater. He's lucky, and he's got a lifelong protection and a copper plate in 15 shock res, 26 HP. The idea is he'll come in and he can assassinate. There's only 3 commanders in this army, so he can start assassinating them. Also, we're going to go ahead and evacuate this gnome from Cavern of Tog. And we're going to send our 2 new Shaitan to Pannonia, so they're positioned to go to either Cavern of Tog or Hubberton. Probably Cavern of Tog, assuming I can win the battle at Scraw Point. We're also going to start pulling in more reinforcements to Hubberton, so we can start putting together a second army to fight his Forbidden Forest army in Bay Pond if needed. So we have a fair amount of stuff coming in. So that's the idea, is if this army delays, that's perfect, but if it moves to Bay Pond, I'll probably use Shaitan to try and defend Cavern of Tog, and maybe these archers, although honestly they probably won't hold up very well. But also, Cavern of Tog is a little bit of a trap. They could go down here and try to set up shop down here, but then they're trapped down here. It'd be reasonably easy for me to hold Bay Pond and keep them in there while I go off and fight the rest of their armies and take their forts. Another move would be for him to come back to Hubberton. If I win at Scraw Point, I'll be able to send those troops back to Hubberton, and I can meet all the new reinforcements that I'm bringing in as well. And so you can see we've got another Malika coming in. We've got this guy who's also coming in. He's going to provide some nature magic. But all in all, in terms of scripting, we've got Soaring Army, we've got Aerofin, we've got Anti-Magic, Fanaticism, Divine Blessing, Divine Channeling, Fanaticism again. We've got some Slumber casts, some Illusory Army casts, a fair number of Body Ethereal. And yeah, and we've got Wailing Winds, and we're also going to try out Firefiend and Firestorm. We'll see how that works out for us. Hopefully it doesn't punch through and kill, especially our hermits here, but it might. Probably could have added stuff to their script to better protect from that. Yeah, so I should have probably also had some protection from fire in there. That would have been really smart, but I'm not going to do that. So we'll see how Firestorm interacts with 5 fire resistance instead. And I think that's most of it. Oh, I guess another part of the scripting is I've got a lot of turn 1 personal flight. And the reason for that is Asphodel warned me about Earthquake. It's also kind of a Negarthan staple to Earthquake. And we saw it in the Micton storm where he did several earthquakes. So we're going to go ahead and try to protect from Earthquake by getting off Soaring Army and a bunch of personal flights and mist forms and stuff like that. In terms of other stuff we're doing, we are getting a little bit more thug gear. So we're getting, like over here, we're getting a Blue Dragon Scale Mail. It's because there are some water mages in that new army. And yeah, I'm sure there was a little bit more, but you can see I've already deployed a lot of the thug gear as well. So I think this is filling in sets. Yeah, so both of these guys are missing armor slots, so that's probably why we're going ahead and making that. And then we've also got a Ring of Levitation that we're making because we're running low on those. But yeah, I think that's it for this one, and hopefully we get a really fun and exciting battle next turn, in turn 62. Have a good one.